Right, who?
Chako or Chabo?
Greg Chako. Isn't he that lounge pianist in that hotel or something?
Perhaps that rebel in me has something to do with my fondness for jazz. When I first began getting interested in jazz, I saw it as kind of almost like a rebel art form, because my first experience with jazz was listening to an Oscar Peterson record, and it was just about the only jazz record in my stepfather's collection, and there were no names of the sidemen. I thought it was some sort of bootleg record, and when I played it, it had immediate appeal. I can't explain exactly why. I think the rhythm and the improvisation is what appealed to me. The swing feel. To me, it was exciting music. It was different. It moved me immediately. But I didn't know what this music was. And I looked at the record and I thought, geez, I wonder who these people are. There was a guitar player. I know now it was Ray Brown and Herb Ellis, a trio without drums, guitar, bass, and piano. And I thought, my God, I've never heard a guitar player play like this. Never heard anybody play like this. And this must be underground music. This must be illegal. That's why there's only one copy. That's why there's no names on the record. There's a newspaper article once referred to me as a jazz prophet spreading the gospel of jazz, and I think that that's what I tried to do. Yeah, there's very much a desire to reach people and to communicate to other people some of the joy that I get from this music. And if I have an opportunity to teach or to talk about the music or to spread some awareness of the music, I always take it. I think that for the most part, the people in Asia and in Singapore are not really exposed to jazz. They don't really know what it is. So how do they know whether they like it or not? I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, highly dysfunctional family. So I'm not really comfortable sharing that with the world. I wanted to be a drummer. When my parents suggested that I take up an instrument, that was what first appealed to me. But my stepfather felt that it would make too much noise, so I had to pick another instrument. And I heard a Jimi Hendrix record, and I decided that that's what I wanted to do, play guitar. Actually, it was a bit of a fight in a way to be a musician, in that my parents didn't really approve, and I was meant to be an engineer or something of that nature and pursue music as a hobby. I got a partial scholarship to Berklee College of Music, and my mother helped finance the rest of my college education. So against my stepfather's wishes, I went to pursue music education. What an upbringing like that does is it instills self-doubt and a lack of confidence in your abilities. So what happened is, in the early part of my musical education, when I went to college, for example, I dropped out. I didn't finish. And I moved to New York, and I got a job in a restaurant, and I stopped playing for a couple of years. Then began playing again, then stopped playing. Basically, what brought me to Asia was my ex-wife. When I moved away from Cincinnati, I was working in Cincinnati as a jazz musician. I was teaching in music stores and playing in a jazz club weekly, and doing private function work whenever it came up. And when I moved to New York, I stopped playing and went through a period of depression and uncertainty. What I began doing in New York was selling industrial real estate. And for about 6 years, I didn't play the guitar at all. My friends in New York thought I was pretty crazy to move. But the way I looked at it, I was a team with my wife at the time, and it was a fresh and new opportunity to discover another part of the world. At the same time, I was feeling my creative juices flowing again. I was feeling like maybe I need to express my creativity again through music. And how was I to do that? And this move gave me the opportunity to think a bit more about that. So in preparation for the move, I began playing the guitar again. And initially I suffered a fairly severe setback in that I developed carpal tunnel syndrome, which is a repetitive motion disease in the wrist. So I had to stop playing for 6 months at a time. I consulted with a variety of experts. I suffered with this for almost 2 years, about a year or two. But ultimately we moved to Hong Kong, and before you know it, I was back doing music full-time in Hong Kong, playing for private parties, both classical guitar and jazz whenever I found the opportunity. And since I've been in Asia for 5 years now, I've been, I focus more and more on music, and my playing career has blossomed. Opportunities continue to present themselves. I've managed to go from one step to the other as far as my playing career. Basically from not playing at all to working every night here in Singapore. I read something recently, a quote from Anton Chekhov, the Russian writer. And he said, if you want to work on your art, work on your life. And working on my life is what I've been doing for the past almost 2 years. And I think if I have a positive outlook, it's not merely positive thinking, which can be a sort of a spiritual bypass. Instead, I've taken a close look at the negativity in my life, at the anger and the pain, and I've embraced it, if you will. I've explored those negative feelings. I believe that you play what you are. So I believe that music is like a mirror. And that's one of the scarier aspects of performing, because you lay your soul open, and to some extent your inner self is revealed. In order to work as a professional musician, you have to basically sell yourself and sell the idea of music to someone who may not be a musician or may not even be an artist themselves. And so presentation has a lot to do with it. What you look like on stage. It's important that you take your appearance seriously. If a club owner feels that you're too much trouble to deal with, you're too unpredictable, you've got a drug problem, you don't look right, whatever, he may make a decision not to allow you to play at his establishment, even though your music could be great. I think if you want to work, it's important to try to consider just what it takes to work. One of the hardest things about playing jazz, or for that matter being an artist in Asia, is you have to create in a vacuum. You have very little of inspiration, very little cultural support for your art. For example, how many people in Singapore do what I do, or for that matter in Asia? The culture here is very much money-driven, very materialistic culture. It doesn't seem to be a great deal of emphasis put on the arts. It seems to be, I think the conventional viewpoint, or the conventional view wherever you're at in the world is that the arts are something to be done as a hobby, as something extra, while you do your serious work doing something else. And of course, from an artist's point of view, and from my point of view, it's the other way around. Art is the real work. Of course, there's a tremendous irony here. Although I have to work in isolation to some extent in Asia, the fact is I'm working more than I would in New York. I know very few musicians, particularly jazz musicians, who are playing the music that they love in the States, for example, or any place else, and getting paid well for it 6 nights a week. So that's what keeps me here, and that's one of the things that sustains me. When I first came to Asia, before I began working regularly, I was very frustrated. I suffered some degree of culture shock at first, which is natural, and coming from such a vibrant artistic cultural city like New York, I was very homesick for inspiration, homesick for support. I wanted to have the knowledge, the comfort that there are other people out there that are doing what I'm doing, and I didn't have that. I didn't have a place to play when I first came to Asia. I didn't have other musicians. I didn't have a community, so to speak. And that's what I mean by creating in a void, in a vacuum. You have to get your inspiration from someplace else. I think I've had the privilege of living in 2 of the most fascinating cities in the world, Hong Kong and Singapore. And although there's a lot here that I love and that I'm interested in, I'd have to say if I weren't playing music every night and earning a living from my craft, I'd be someplace else. I've been working virtually every night for 2.5 years. And that's been, in a way, my salvation here. It's been my problems, my unique form of therapy, if you will. Because no matter what personal problems I've had to deal with during the day, I know that every night I'm going to go out and I'm going to play. I'm going to improvise. I'm going to decide what tune we're going to play, what tempo, what time signature, and I'm going to be able to express myself. And for an improviser, I think there's really no greater joy. I want my music to move people. I want them to feel something. I want it to change them somehow. I mean, the opposite of love is not hate, but indifference. And That's indifference is what is the worst thing, really. There's been an over intellectualization of jazz. I think that in the beginning, in my parents' era, jazz was dance music. It was entertainment. One thing that makes me happy in my performance is when I see people's physical reactions. I see them tapping their feet or dancing, moving to the music. I remember one of the most gratifying experiences I had as a performer was when I had a customer who came to hear me play in a wheelchair, and the movement of his whole body due to his disease was severely limited. So to express appreciation for the music, he would bang on the table with his hand, and the whole table would shake. And this made me feel so good because I know that there was a reaction there. I knew that I had moved this person. If my performance wasn't moving, I would hear nothing out of this guy. And performing in Asia can be difficult because I think that Asian people, particularly the Chinese, are not accustomed to expressing their emotions openly. The tendency with the Asian mentality is to kind of keep somewhat of a poker face, hold their emotions in. It's difficult as a performer to kind of know where you stand when you're playing to people who don't make any obvious reaction. Sometimes in the bar where I play, there'll be dead silence after the song, and the three of us look around at each other and think, what is this for, you know? I've noticed more and more younger people coming in to hear me play who are very curious about jazz, and I feel kind of like a messenger in a way in Singapore, kind of bringing the music here, what I consider to be an honest representation of good swinging acoustic jazz. A few months ago, we had some people come into the bar where I play who began dancing, and this was quite a novelty for the band because most of the time people are too shy to get up and move their bodies here, and before you knew it, there were about 3 or 4 couples out dancing. And this makes us feel good because it feels like we're contributing, that there's some communication going on, that there's a relationship between dancer, listener, and musician. And now every Thursday we have the same group of dancers. There's an excitement which is generated by dancing to a live band rather than taped music. The kind of players that I like to listen to are not the most technically proficient. They're not the cleanest. They're not the most perfect. I mean, one of my favorite guitar players is Jimi Hendrix. The reason that I love him so much is because of his unique ability to convey emotion through his music. A lot of the time he was out of tune. Some might say he was sloppy, but he made the guitar speak. And this is what I look for in musicians. This is what I like to listen to myself. So I'm not listening to his technique. I'm not listening to his, I'm not analyzing his playing from a technical point of view. I'm looking for the emotion in the playing. Can it move me? Does it have a good feel? Does it speak to me? And this is the kind of music that I aspire to, and the kind of music that I try to teach my students. Because all too often in Asia, the emphasis is too much on book learning and technique, and the emotional impact can be underemphasized. So if you practice scales and arpeggios, that's what's going to come out in your playing. If you practice playing melodies and playing with feeling and emotion, that's what will come out in your playing. Because the thing is, if you get involved in practicing scales, you end up playing like that. You've heard the expression, you are what you eat. Well, you are what you practice. When I began playing guitar again, I wanted to approach relearning the instrument differently than I had before. So what I did is I deliberately avoided practicing scales and arpeggios. I deliberately avoided all exercises which were purely of a technical nature. And what I tried to do instead was to create melodies. I tried to play as melodically as possible. In fact, to help me with that, I began to sing my solos. So in other words, as I play, I would sing the line like something like that. My lines, my melody notes are very distinct. There's no, the lines are clear, and the sound is warm. I think part of this is, as far as the tone, is due to the fact that I play with my thumb. So, of course, the meat of my fingers is soft and round, and there's a softness, kind of a gentleness, but at the same time there's the attack is, although it's smooth, it's also quite clear. You hear every note, and you know, when I improvise lines, you know, that clarity is important to me. My lines are to sort of stand out from the changes. I don't want any note to be missed. Gratifies me that when I hear reviews of my music now and my playing, and they say that there's no pyrotechnics, no unnecessary show of technique. I find that when my trio is playing its best, all three of us have our eyes closed. We're just playing, and we're not looking anywhere or thinking anything. It's almost as if the music has a life of its own. One thing I can say about my band is I've never worked with, I've never been happier with a group, you know, on the whole, as people, and the way that we interact with each other, personally and musically, is very refreshing. I feel like it's my family in a way. It's a very positive band, and you know, playing every night sometimes can be a strain. It's hard to maintain a high level of inspiration every moment, playing 4 hours a night, 6 nights a week. But for the most part, we have fun every night. In my time in Asia, I've become, I think, more adaptable, and I've learned to become more sensitive to the differences in other people. I was always a fairly flexible and adaptable person, but I think my 5 years in Asia has made me even more so. I'm a lot less quick to jump to conclusions or make judgments on what appear to be differences. You know, there's a certain exploitation, you know, obviously, you know, in Asia of the Filipino musicians in particular, you know, and although it's not a pretty thing, and I don't condone it, but the fact that I'm white means immediately when F&B director looks at me, he knows he can't pay me what he's going to pay a Filipino. So there's a real a prejudice here, and unfortunately, because things are quite difficult, you know, it's difficult to make a living as a musician in Manila. Guys are willing to come here and work for essentially a fee that would be far less than what an American expat musician would get. And they're still making more than they would in Manila. And the agents that control these guys are making all the money. And basically both in a sense, what it does is it drives the prices down, and it's in a sense it's a no-win situation for all concerned. So what happens in this situation is that the musicians are working for peanuts. The hotel is paying still quite a substantial fee, and the majority of that money is going to the agent. I see myself as a more sensitive individual in this whole equation, because I'm sensitive to the hotel because I have some sensitivity to business. I understand their bottom line, and I understand the importance of that. So in other words, I make an effort to understand where they're coming from, what's important to them. And of course, because I'm a musician myself, obviously I'm sensitive to the musicians and what their plight is. I know how difficult it is to be a musician, and how difficult it is to earn a living. So that means I'm able to kind of be more sensitive to both sides than strictly an agent. I see myself as providing an alternative, as basically, honest, level-headed, someone who can basically provide the best of service to both, because I'm not going to screw the musicians, I'm not going to screw the hotel. Even to this day, if musicians, they work for me, they get paid as soon as possible, usually that night, you know what I mean? Even if I don't receive my payment from the company until much later. And that's one of the reasons that musicians like to work with me. They know if I call them up for a gig, they know they're going to get paid. They don't have to worry. I've always been paid. They'll always be paid, and I have that reputation. It's worked for me well in Asia. The most effective marketing tool in Asia is really that of personal contacts, that is of personal references, being kind of like associated with a certain group of people, a network, if you will. And I think that in making an evaluation as to whether or not a businessman is going to use my entertainment services or not, very much depends on who else I've worked for. Do they know these people? Have I provided do I have a good reputation? I think basically, for the most part, my experience is in Asia, people are generally honest. They basically want to do the right thing. And sometimes doing the right thing doesn't mean having a bunch of contracts and attorneys. It's more a one-on-one, it's more a personal relationship, and a question of, well, frankly, of honor. Well, of course we get lots of sex, that goes without saying. But just kidding. The life of a musician is difficult. I don't know where to start. One thing I can say is that I think that musicians are often not understood. I think that people don't realize the amount of hard work that goes in and discipline that goes into being a musician. I think it's quite a common perception for someone to think that we're just instruments of the divine creative force, and the music just flows through us effortlessly. And so it is with music, in that you get into it what you put out of it. Music itself is very honest. Maybe the people aren't honest, but music is honest. That is to say that music won't cheat you. Music's not like a lover who would leave you. Music will never leave you. Music will never backstab you. Music will never lie to you. Music will always give you rewards equal to the work you put into it. In that case, unlike people, it will never let you down. That's one of the great rewards of music. Speaking about improvisation, I remember I had a teacher once who told me, Greg, when you improvise well, you're in a place where no one can touch you. And he's right about that, because I think what he meant is that when you are involved in the act of creating, the spontaneous act of creating, you're in sort of a different plane where you're safe, where you're, I won't say above it all, but you sort of transcend everyday reality. Truthfully, music is an open and honest art form. And sometimes when egos get in the way, the music suffers. That is to say, when a musician starts comparing himself to another musician, when you start getting jealous because this person can play better than you think. And my philosophy is that this is actually harmful to the music. This has nothing to do with music, and it has everything to do with ego. It has everything to do with dysfunction and human beings, but it has nothing to do with the music, because music is can't be polluted that way. Music is pure. If you're a jazz musician, you have to play, and long before you get paid for it, your jazz musicians congregate. We have jam sessions. We do whatever we can to play. We don't. We like to be paid for our music, but if we're not going to be paid, it's not going to stop us from playing. So in that way, you have to be very strong to be a jazz artist. The reward you get from playing jazz is very often simply the enjoyment you get from playing. Yeah, I think jazz is good for Asia, because I think that it is a vehicle through which people can learn about themselves. It's a music that can help teach people how to express themselves, how to the importance of individual style. It gives people an alternative to actually copying someone else. Individual spirit, and one's individual spirit isn't something that can be limited by category and by words, by definition, by even culture. It's something that needs to blossom and needs to. Jazz is the best art form with which to do that, to break out of molds, to basically go against the flow. I think that there's a bit of the rebel in me, and I think jazz appeals to me for that reason, because it gives the rebel-like urges in me, the creative child urges in me, a form of expression. So I'm not playing to preconceived ideas, and I'm not improvising to someone else's formula. I'm creating my own formula. I think that as more people in Singapore and Asia kind of like discover jazz music, discover the vitality, the freedom, really how deep it is, and also how much fun it is, it's my hope that that you'll see the music growing in popularity here. I'd like to see more local musicians interested in jazz. I'd be gratified if I felt that I could leave Singapore and that sometime in the future, after I'm gone, there'd be a bustling jazz scene here. Oh, that would make me feel really good if I felt that I somehow contributed to this. If there was something in my playing or my teaching here, my public performances, if that somehow inspires some kid to say, wow, I would like to learn a little bit more about this music. I'd like to go out and buy a Wes Montgomery record. Just what's going on with this music? You know, I'm not selfish about the music. You know, it's not a question of I'm not scared about losing my job to a local or something like that. I'm really interested more in creating a community, a community of like-minded individuals, a community of people who have similar goals and aspirations. And you know, my philosophy about life and about music is one of sharing and one of openness, not one of, oh, this is mine, you can't take it. And so in that respect, you know, I'm reaching out to the community here, and I'm saying this is a wonderful thing. This music is more fantastic than you can imagine, and you should. And I hope you get interested in it. I hope you're interested in me, and I hope that makes you interested in the music. And then I hope you go on your own and you make some investigation, and you discover some insight into yourself through the music. And my philosophy in life and in music is one of unity. It's not one of separateness. It's not like Americans created jazz, so Americans are the only one that can play jazz, and you can't play jazz because you're from Singapore, you can't play jazz because you're not black, etc., etc. I don't own this music, they don't own this music, you don't own this music. The music is there for all of us to share. Okay, I've got to warm up to this. What was it I said a minute ago? Yeah, I got to be careful I don't say something that I don't really know about. I'm stuck again. Gee, I never thought of it. I don't know what to say about that, Iqbal. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. I'm fumbling. I don't know. I don't know. I'm stuck, Iqbal. What was the question again?